وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Alright, let's get this started. The Autobiography of Malcolm X. We're at the wrap-up portion. I know you're like, wait, there's so much of his life left, half of his life.
Hello.
No, not till I'm done, but come closer.
You're done.
I'm not done, I'm just starting. You have chocolate stuck to your face. Big monkey. Okay. So, last week we got into when Malcolm begins to now accept and begin to practice the Nation of Islam within prison, and how he began to propagate, and some would say proselytize, but really propagate his religion. Khadija, tuck your shirt in if you're going to do that, okay? And so now, what happens with Malcolm is he's eventually going to leave prison. And when he's going to leave prison, one of the things that we're going to begin to see about Malcolm is that he is looking for a way out. By way out means he's not trying to escape. He's looking for a better way of life. And this is what the Nation of Islam gave him. He didn't realize that he was looking for a better life. But if you look at some of the telltale signs of what he used to do, there's a lot of psychological elements that were there that are very destructive to the self, because he was looking for more and he couldn't find it and he hated himself. From the moment he began to find love for himself, he began to completely change. Now, Malcolm X had sort of an inside connection to Elijah Muhammad. Anytime Elijah Muhammad visited Detroit and he went to the temple, Detroit Temple number 1, anytime Elijah Muhammad visited, he would stay with Wilfred, Malcolm's brother. So Malcolm had an inside connection. He was able to speak to Elijah through letters and eventually in person in a way that many people would not. Now understand that early on, the Nation of Islam was not that vast in numbers. It wasn't tens of thousands of people. There were small pockets of the nation. It was in its introductory phases. And in fact, it looks like from all points of history that had Malcolm X not accepted the Nation of Islam would never have grown. Because he's what caused it to grow. And when Elijah Muhammad eventually passes away, and his son, W.D. Muhammad, Wallace Muhammad, also Warithuddin Muhammad, he actually becomes Sunni Muslim with Malcolm later in life. And a good group of the nation leave and they join Sunni Islam. And that I'm going to speak about some personal experiences, interactions with them later. What's this? Okay, now when Malcolm leaves prison, what do we begin to see? The first thing is Malcolm's name. Malcolm's name used to be Malcolm Little. It becomes Malcolm X. Who remembers how the X works? So let's say I become part of the nation. Let's say someone becomes part of the Nation of Islam. His name is John. The first John to become a part of the Nation of Islam will be known as what? John X. And the next person would be John 2X, John 3X. If 145, Khadija, I'm going to ask you one more time to stop. Your pants are too short and your shirt is too short and it's showing your back, and I don't like it, okay? Thank you. Go over there though, because I understand to come here then. Go, thank you. Now, what happens with Malcolm is that with John, he'll be John 145X. John 145X, why would he call that? Because number one, they don't go by their last name. Last names are inherited. Have you ever seen like there's an athlete, his last name is Shoemaker. Why is he known as Shoemaker? Because one of his ancestors made shoes. That's why he's known as Shoemaker. Because initially this whole Khadija, I'm about to put you in a timeout now, okay? What's up?
Can I say hi now?
Say hi. And you have to just come close and say hi. Say hi. Go, come closer. Say hi.
Over here.
Just say it.
Take off.
No, just say it.
Hi.
Okay, good. Not till you start behaving better. When you behave better, then you get a turn, okay? Good. Yes, you can do it. Now, because they felt the last name of the general populace that you were given
Hi.
was the last name of the slave master. Because the black Americans in this country, no, I shouldn't say black Americans, African Americans, because Cuban Americans, I don't think this applied to them. They came from a place where they were robbed of their ancestry and their history. Not yet, so I see you behaving better properly, okay? At that point, when they come here, they get the name of their master. And it's not something that they're proud of. And there's some clips, when we did the online classes, I would show the clips that, Malcolm had this whole interview. And on this interview, what do we see? They said, well, what's your last name? He says, I don't have last names. Okay, can you tell me what your slave master is given last names? Like, no, I'm not going to even honor that title by mentioning it. Meaning Malcolm was and the people of the Nation of Islam were so careful that, look, we are separating ourselves from from the history, our historical roots to slavery, and reuniting ourselves with our roots towards our actual African tradition and heritage. That which we don't know, we're just going to exit out, and that which we know, we're going to keep it for ourselves. So anyway, now Malcolm, there was a time where Malcolm X, where do I go? It's over here. Okay. We had hoped to hear his wisdom during the dinner there with Elijah Muhammad, but instead he encouraged us to talk. I sat thinking of how our Detroit temple more or less just sat and awaited Allah to bring converts, and beyond that, of the millions of black people all over America who had never had heard of the teachings that could stir and wake and resurrect the black man. And there at Mr. Muhammad's table, I found my tongue. I've always been one to speak my mind. The conversation there, go ahead.
Hi.
Okay. The conversation there was just an open conversation. But what was plaguing Malcolm? What was plaguing Malcolm was this idea that other people don't know about this religion. No more, Anas, no more. She only got one turn, you got one turn, Anas, Hamna got one turn. Now go back, okay? Come over and let me fix your pants. Now, what was plaguing Malcolm was he felt that he found guidance. Okay, I have to tell Mama now. Can I tell Mama? No, she only had one turn. No, she only had one turn. Now, what was plaguing Malcolm was he finally found guidance. And he's like, there's millions of blacks who have not found guidance. And so he felt that his black Americans, fellow African Americans need to find this guidance. So there he's sitting with the head of this movement. And so he finds his tongue. So the conversation died down. I asked Mr. Muhammad how many Muslims are supposed to be in our temple, number 1, Detroit. He said there's supposed to be thousands. Yes, sir, I said. And then he said, sir, what is your opinion of the best way of getting thousands there? Go after the young people, he said. Once you get them, the older ones will follow through shame. I made up my mind that we were going to follow that advice. Back in Detroit, I talked to my brother Wilfred. I offered my services to our temple's minister, Lemuel Hassan. He shared my determination that we should apply Mr. Muhammad's formula in a recruiting drive. Beginning that day, every evening, straight from work at the furniture store, I went doing what we Muslims later came to. Anas, you have to sit in timeout. Go back to the wall, sit in timeout. Thank you. We would call fishing. I knew the thinking in the language of ghetto streets. My man, let me pull your coat to something. So Anas, timeout. Okay, I have to send you outside now. No, outside timeout. Okay, then against the wall timeout. Which one do you want, outside or against the wall? Good. So Malcolm, what did he use? He used his past experiences. So he said, well, I'm in the streets. I had X amount of years in the streets. I had 8 years in the streets. Let me use that experience. And that's the first lesson that we learned today. And that lesson is, Malcolm didn't just say, you know what, I had a bad life. I'm embarrassed of myself. Let me not use that. Rather, he thought I had these strengths. I was able to, okay, Anas, timeout done. You're done, okay? I was able to go in and convince many people. I was able to pull deals. I was able to hustle. Let me use this talk that I have and this influence I have and the ability to be able to maneuver around these groups that I had and my pool and now begin to bring people in. It's not because he was out in prison. Hamna, off of Khadija, please. It's not just because he was in prison that people began to look down upon him. No. Rather, they saw him still as an influential person. So when he came onto the streets, what did they say? They began to utilize his influence for goodness. They began to utilize when he was back on the streets, now with a good cause. In the day, he'd work in the furniture store. In the evenings, he would go out and he would teach and preach. Now you tell me, because he has to sit here quietly, why would he, with such a bad reputation, be able to reach people that these others who don't have this reputation reach? Say it. His bad reputation, he had a bad reputation. Why did his reputation help him on the streets? Yeah, definitely. And people will notice, people noticed that this guy was way off the path, just like the rest of them. And now, like, he's happy, he's content, and he's really made for himself a decision in life that's benefiting him. They were willing to listen. Look, if you, yes, any of you know that Stephen Jackson program? You went, anyone else go? You didn't go? After your basketball love, you didn't go? No? Stephen Jackson, he came to Dar es Salaam? Oh man, do you guys go? Any of you guys do the basketball camp or anything? You guys do the tournament or anything? Okay. Now, Stephen Jackson actually was able to bring, I think he's the one who influenced, what's his name? Kyrie Irving, right? He influenced Kyrie Irving to become Muslim. Stephen Jackson, former player on the San Antonio Spurs, and he also played on the, was that New Jersey he played? But he won a championship with San Antonio. He was a sharpshooter. He was actually really good. He was actually considered one of the hottest shooters in the league when he played. He influenced Kyrie Irving, who now is also what? Muslim, because a fellow NBA player told him. If one of us went to Kyrie Irving, you think he would have listened? Probably not. But someone who made the money that he made, and had the fame that he had, and had the championship pedigree that he had, the all-star caliber skills that he had, he's speaking, it's one-on-one conversation with people who understand. If we go, someone might say, Kyrie might say, look, what do you know about the millions I have in life? I'm happy. But Stephen Jackson, who already has that, is telling him, Kyrie's like, that makes sense. And so you use the skills of your past. And I really can't use interruptions right now. Do you have to use the restroom or something? No, okay, I just can't handle interruptions. No, over there. Yes?
So was he talking about like how he influenced Kyrie Irving?
He was talking about how he became Muslim. And then from that, he began to talk about like who he influenced as well. It's actually online, it's recorded. I can get you the recording if you want to hear it. It was like a 2-hour program, right? It was a long program, yeah. I listened online at home with the younger one, my older two, and my wife went. So anyway, that's what he took advantage of. And that's what you guys take advantage of as well. If you're gonna call someone Islam, you don't have to be a scholar to speak basics about Islam. You don't have to be a scholar to speak about humanity. Well, you have to be someone who's concerned. Khadija, I don't want to see your backside. You don't want to be someone who thinks I don't have anything to offer, because everyone has something to offer. You have to recognize what you have to offer. So now Malcolm, so I'm going to skip over, we already covered the X part. Now Malcolm began to go out. A few months of plugging away, our storefront temple one. What does storefront mean? This is almost a storefront masjid. It's not exactly. Storefront masjid is sort of like you know, like you go to like those just like down the street with like Italian Express and like Hijra, like you could see the storefront, like you just look inside. Sometimes you convert those office buildings to a masjid, a small thing. And it tripled in just in a month or so. So if they had 100, it became 300. If they had 500, it became 1,500. They're able to triple their amount. Why? Just because Malcolm and the others pushed. And this deeply pleased Elijah Muhammad, who came and began to visit them and honor them with his visits. And so when he came to visit them, you have to give credit. The initial Nation of Islam people are different than the latter groups. And always the initial groups are usually more sincere than the latter ones. The initial ones, like Lamil Hassan, what did he say? He's like, man, don't credit me, credit Malcolm. Malcolm over here is the one who made the effort and gave us the idea. And so now, they began to grow and grow and grow. And so Elijah Muhammad kept honoring him, and Malcolm found a father figure. Remember, his father dies. How old is Malcolm? Yeah, he's very young. He's under 10. He's under 10. He's very young. He didn't live his life with a father figure. So now Malcolm has found that father figure, someone who lives an upright life, who lives an honest life, who is willing to put the blood and sweat to change himself. And Malcolm loves this. He doesn't know the other parts. He'll figure out the other parts later. And he mentions, I worshipped him. He used to love Elijah so much. In early 1953, I left a furniture store. I earned a little better weekly pay working at a gas wood factory in Detroit, where big garbage truck bodies were made. I cleaned up behind the welders each time they finished another truck body. Why is this an important tidbit? This is important because here's a guy who had the zoot suits and the polished shoes and the conked hair and lived in this fancy apartments and ate well and had all this cash, who's now going back to the basics. And why did he go back to these basics? Because he's like, look, I'm going to just earn some hard-earned money. And I'm going to tell you guys, it's not a lesson from today, but just advice. What I've noticed from my generation, your generation, and from my parents' generation and my generation, every generation, Khadija, Hamna, go towards the back, please. Every generation that comes after, we expect like fancier jobs. We do. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf had this very interesting clip I found online where he's talking about when he came back from Mauritania. And he said nowadays, and this is recent, but he came back from Mauritania like 25 years ago, 30 years ago. He said nowadays, people, these imams, these ulama, they come back from studying, what happens? They're expecting like these cushy imam jobs, getting paid like $70,000, $80,000 a year, provided home, provided car, and all these things. He's like, I went to study just for myself. And he's like, I came back and I did nursing school because I wanted to go back because I live in a desert community that had no health care, so I can go back and provide health care to them. And he's like, I just gave talks as people asked. I never received an honorarium. I never, he was just, that's how it was back then. Even the ulama today and others, we all expect as a Muslim home that we have the most cushy job. Look, especially at your age, take what comes. I remember my first job, I worked security and partial janitorial service at our high school. I did security, and that was just, I did database entry. And then I would clean up like in the summers, like there's a lot of, you set up for the next year. You reorganize the desk and you sweep the floor, etc. That's what I did. I remember once I had a really favorite sweatshirt that someone gave me, and I was cleaning up and I had rat droppings all over the sleeve, and I just should have washed it, but I just threw it away. I was so upset. But the idea is that you have to do those things. I mean, you know what my starting salary was? Who can guess? Remember, I'm only 40. I was born not in 2000, born in 1981. But guess what my starting salary was? I worked 25 years. My first job when I was 15, 25 years ago. Sorry? $5 an hour? Well, I didn't hear what you said. 5. I celebrated when I reached 5. My first job was $3.75 an hour. $3.75 an hour. It's okay. Because what Malcolm is showing us over here is that you start small and you build and build and build and build and build until you become big. And that's in deen, that's in knowledge, that's in memorization of Quran. Who memorizes a juz a day over here when you first started? Who memorizes half a juz a day when you first started? Who memorized a couple lines a day when you first started? That's how it works. And you build. No, she didn't. You build and you build and you build. Okay, guys, go to the back. Go to the back, please, because Anas is now bothering me. Anas, go to the back. Thank you. Go back. Anas, 3, 2, 1. Okay, time out. Time. The finger's going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Go before it goes on. I have to give you time out. Okay. And so he started with these basics. He worked at a furniture store. He cleaned out the spots from welding, etc. But there was a blessing in this. And what was the blessing? The Prophet ﷺ, when he first would work, what would he do? Even before he was a businessman, what would he do? He was a shepherd. And all the Anbiya were shepherds. And there were various wisdoms behind it. But one of the blessings was, it was a humbling job. You think these sheep listen to you? Look at my sheep over there. Do they listen to me? No, I feel like threats all the time. They don't listen to you. But you get used to that, and you get used to rejection, and you get better, and you become more patient, etc. When Malcolm, if he had this, $1,000 a day job, you think he would have been willing to go on the streets and bring people to deen? Or to what he thought was deen? No. It took him being humbled to go bring people towards what he thought was right. And that's why he did it. Now, he mentions something very interesting. It simply had never occurred to me that I might be a minister. It's like, me? A minister? Never. It didn't even come to his mind. What he always thought was what? I'm going to be the guy who does the brunt work, and I'm going to push people towards the deen. I'm going to push people towards the deen. Khadija, please stop. Go sit by the wall, Khadija. Thank you. Okay. Let's move forward. Subhanallah, where was okay, here. So now, one minister, I know that I testified to what Elijah Muhammad's teachings had done for me, and there was a lot of personal experience, and that's how I began to bring people into this by showing him how he was changed. Eventually, that summer, he got promoted up to assistant minister. And as the assistant minister, what was he doing? He was now giving sermons and taking some of the roles that were not that were now more formal, that had existed because of the fact that he had put forth this effort. So now, today, when thousands of Muslims and others, he's talking about like 1960, when was this, 1964, I think he was sitting down to go through this. Thousands of Muslims and others have been audiences out before me. When audiences of millions have been beyond the radio and television microphones, I'm sure I rarely feel as much electricity as one generated in me by the upturned face of those 75 or 100 Muslims, plus other curious visitors. And I'm going to tell you very openly. Sometimes people come and they'll say things like, I've had teachers, Khadija, please fix your shirts. I'm very disappointed in you today. I'm very disappointed. I don't want to see your stomach anymore. Sometimes you see our teachers. My class in madrasa. When I graduated, how many people do you think was in madrasa with me? Think of your madaris. Think of the overseas madaris. How many people do you think graduated with me? Give me a number. Sorry? A couple hundred. Good guess. 12. But yeah, you go to the Al-Umm Deoband, there's like 400 or 500 people and stuff there. I went to a smaller madrasa. My teachers, when they taught, they came prepared and they were teaching as if they were speaking to a class of ulama. It was just 12 scrubs sitting there. Actually, it was one scrub and 11 other students. We were just sitting there. But they were because for them, it was about Allah. And Malcolm over here, he was saying that, look, I didn't care about the numbers. I didn't care about the sheer amount of energy that I was getting from, the thousands or millions over radio who listened to me. For me, those 75 who came and listened with sincerity, those were the individuals that I was able to benefit and I was able to gain benefit from. And I want you guys to remember this as a special lesson for yourselves. When you begin to give talks or give khutbahs or speak to people, don't think you need to have huge audiences. You don't need to do that. There might be one person who sits there who gains benefit from you. Look, the Prophet ﷺ, when he first started da'wah, how many Muslims existed? When he first started private da'wah, how many Muslims existed? It's an easy answer. 0. When he first became prophet, no one else was Muslim yet, right? He goes home, Khadija becomes one. She already had this idea that he's something special. By the time he goes publicly, it's only a handful of Muslims, 10 Muslims, that before he goes public. His family, pretty much, that's it. Did it change the energy? No. Now look at the early Muslims. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, first adult. Khadija radiallahu anha, adult male. Khadija radiallahu anhu, first Muslima and adult in everything. Ali radiallahu anhu, first free child. Zayd radiallahu anhu, first enslaved or former slave. Etc. Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, the uncle of the Prophet, the 4th or 6th person to become Muslim. Early on, they see became Muslim. They're the names we remember today. Person 126,000, we don't know that person's name. Person 114,312, we don't know that person's name. Person 1, we know their name. Person 10, we know their name. Person 6, we know their name. Why? Because the early ones, when you're one-on-one, has a lot of impact. So when you go begin to change people, don't look for the numbers. Because there might be one person who's sitting in that crowd, that one person could change, and by virtue of that one person, you'll get Jannah. And there's countless examples of this that occur. Our teachers, I remember seeing some of my teachers, they're from villages overseas. But now they're teaching countless people. Why? Because in their village overseas, in the middle of Afghanistan, in the middle of the NWFP of Pakistan, they got taught by someone. And they were subsequently able to change other people's lives. So you have to have that same focus. Not that you have to give da'wah or teach, that you should never feel that the numbers are not sufficient. The fact that Allah uses our, honestly, our faulty selves to bring others to deen is such a blessing. What a blessing for you. People, when we first started this class, 20 people here. What's up? No, I need you to sit in the back, okay? Now there's only 6. But it's not only 6 for me, because the 6 who come here are 6 who want to learn, and 6 who will eventually benefit from this person's life and hopefully change their lives. Now, if I have 1,000 people here who are sitting oh, subhanAllah, it's a great speech, etc., and not one changes their lives, but I have 6 people who's come, and those 6, all 6 change their lives, or 2 of the 6 change their lives, what's the better percentage? The 2 out of 6 who change versus the 0 out of 1,000 who change. So we have to never look at numbers. The gatherings we speak, like, when I raise my voice and I lower my voice, that's one, it's a habit. But two, it doesn't matter. If there's two people here, the same thing will happen. Why? Because that's what my teachers taught me. It doesn't matter. You don't just sit, there's only 4 people. I'm just going to give a pretty plain bayan and just talk like this because no one's here. No. You have to give everything because it's not for the people. It's for Allah. It's for Allah. Shaykh Muhammad Yaqubi, his father, Shaykh Ibrahim Yaqubi, rahmatullahi alayhi, was a scholar from Syria. In the war in Syria years ago, he would go to the masjid to speak, to teach. Sometimes Shaykh Muhammad, who was very little at that time, would come with him and just tag along. He mentioned that my father would be teaching and speaking, and there wouldn't be one student in the masjid. He would just be teaching to the walls. And people would ask, because in the war, some people didn't want to come to the masjid, why do you even come to the masjid? He said, look, my job is to teach. The student's job is to come and listen and learn. And that's how we look at it. And that's how I want all of us to take into this. And subhanAllah, when Malcolm, when he began to speak, he was very powerful. He was very, very powerful. Guys, please don't run up here. Run the back. Thank you. And Malcolm, he began to find an attachment towards speaking. And people began to really lend to him. They began to draw to him. And so I don't want to mention a lot of the lines that he mentioned, but one of the things that you see, he really drew upon the idea of being proud of being black. And they really took to that idea. And I want all of us, okay, we're not black here. No one here today, sometimes here there are, no one today happens to be black or African American, but we're Muslim, and there has to be a pride there. And this is why it's really important that when you speak and you're speaking to people, that you have an attachment to your history. Now, Malcolm often told false things about his history that were not true, because he thought they were true, but he was mistaught. But all of us, we know the truth. We know about Tariq bin Ziyad having conquering Spain when he was only 17. We know that Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhuma leading the army out of Madinah al-Munawwara after the Prophet passed away, he's only 15, 16. We know Ali bin Abi Talib standing next to the Prophet radiallahu anhu when he was only 7. We know these things. And sometimes it takes, you don't have to quote 10 lines of hadith in the Quran. You just say, hey, we had people just like us back then who were young and they committed themselves. And that's what brought change. The last thing I want to remember is that Malcolm spoke a lot of hate speech, unfortunately. White man's the devil, etc. It's not the most positive thing to speak on. Uthman, can you take them to the car now? Yeah. But it worked. And I wanted to mention that because for Malcolm, he didn't think of it as hate speech. He thought of it as truth. The reason I mention this is if you listen to some of Malcolm's early speeches, or you read some of his early speeches, or you read this book, you might say, whoa, he was sort of a hater. He was a racist, towards white. He sort of was, yes, but he didn't know better. Because that's what he was taught by Elijah Muhammad. The moment he was taught true Islam, he left that entire approach towards what they consider to be the white man's the devil, etc. So I'm going to stop over here because I had to leave a few minutes early today because I'm traveling. We're meeting next week. Your Eid is on Tuesday, so is my Eid. I'm traveling and doing Eid on Tuesday as well, so everyone will be celebrating Eid on Tuesday as well. An early Eid Mubarak. We will have class the next week. We're going to try to do something special. We might just have lunch together. So we might just come. So the people who listen online, and the people who are here in person, some of the guys stopped coming. That's fine. I don't care if there's only all of you, because it's not only in my eyes. I'm very happy to play with all of you. I'm very happy to beat all of you. It's fun. But what? You sore loser? But you played a game with me, so you won one game. Yeah. Joking. But we're gonna try to have lunch or something next week. Inshallah. I missed the last Eid party because I fell sick. I'll make my intention not to fall sick this time. Those of you who are coming, if you're going to come and you normally don't show in person, please let us know somehow that you'll be coming so we can arrange properly, inshallah. And that's it. Enjoy your Eid. Take advantage of it. Yes, question?
Right now, is Malcolm Muslim?
Say it again?
Right now, like the period you're on the book, is he Muslim?
No, he's Nation of Islam. He's not Muslim yet. He doesn't become Muslim except for the last year and a half of his life. Yeah, question? No. Cool. See you guys next week. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah. So you have about 4 minutes to adhan. If you do wudu, go ahead, do wudu. If you want to just pray some your sunnah, you can pray sunnah before that. There's 4 minutes to adhan, inshallah.
big animals, big.
Oh, the stairs.
Yes, enjoy. Don't slaughter too many, goats or cows or cows. Should we rent out a gym for Eid, and then have a full PS gym or something, and do something like that? What do you talk to your dad about that? Rent someplace out or I don't know, maybe do that. We all gather there and play. If you guys want to do that, let me know.